The good news for Red Sox fans this Tuesday is that you woke up this morning and realized the Red Sox didn't lose because they didn't play. So that's always a good way to start the day. Welcome to the Locked On Red Sox podcast. I am your host, NESN's Lauren Campbell. I am flying solo without Jake Ignazuski today. He is in San Diego with the Massachusetts Pirates as they continue their season. But I do have a very special guest. I'm going to be bringing him on in just a few moments. We are going to be talking, obviously, the Red Sox struggles and look into the prospects, Triston Casas, Jarren Duran, and other players that maybe Red Sox fans should be on the lookout for. So let's just get right to it.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. So like I said in the intro, we are going to bring you a special guest today. He is the game day producer for the Worcester Red Sox and just so happens to be my fiance. That would be Derrick Willand. Derrick, thanks for taking time out of your very busy day to come hang with me on Locked On Red Sox.
Hey, thanks for having me. I know this was a tough get for you.
Yes, it was. You're a very difficult man to get a hold of, let me tell you. So we're going to talk about some prospects that you've been able to see a lot already this season. You're at the ballpark every home game, so you're able to really kind of see these guys up close. But first, the Red Sox MLB team is not playing like an MLB team. Bottom of the AL East, it's been a very tough 30 games for Red Sox fans, particularly with Trevor Story and most of the offense. What's been your biggest takeaway through 30 games?
I think my biggest takeaway is the fact that the offense is just not there. At the beginning of the season, I think people could have predicted maybe the pitching might be an issue. They didn't really do anything to add there. But you had a great lineup that's been strong 3 out of the last 4 years. And the bottom just fell out, even though they added another good bat. So I think that's been my biggest takeaway.
Do you think that, and I've seen this thrown around on Twitter because it's Twitter, but do you think that Alex Cora has lost the room, or do you just think that it's a tough start to the season and we need to stop panicking?
No, I don't think he's lost the room. Anybody that's been there since 18, I mean, that's a long enough time where if he'd been there straight through, maybe. But the fact that they lost him for a year and came back, I think it's kind of, you miss what you don't have. I think anybody that had to go through that 2020 season is grateful to have him back in the clubhouse. And anybody that's new, I don't think there's any boo birds, any bad blood that might be infesting the new guys. I don't think he's lost the clubhouse. I think people respect him a lot. He made a passing comment the other day that he might have to shave his beard. So let's see if he can change the juju around. But I think he's got a good baseball mind. I think he's doing. He'll be willing to try whatever he can to try to turn this around and get them going in the right direction.
I do want to say that I said at the beginning of the season, if the Red Sox got swept to begin their season, then Alex Cora would have to shave. It's a shame it's taken this long, but obviously that's not the main issue. But no sport arguably revolves around superstition than baseball. So you just have to try everything at this point. You mentioned go ahead.
As a bearded man myself, we go to that's the last thing you want to think is the issue.
When was the last time you shaved?
Clean face?
Yeah. It was well before me. I've only known you with a beard.
The year 2015 of our Lord.
Holy smokes. Well,
yeah.
that's a long time. And, it's not, your beard isn't the problem with the Red Sox season, but you mentioned boo birds, and you were actually at the game when Trevor Story struck out 4 times and was booed. I don't want to say into oblivion because I don't think it was that bad, but obviously he's not a bust right now, but he's really, really struggling. And a lot of people are turning to his home splits, Red Sox from Coors Field to Fenway Park. So does Trevor Story turn this season around? Does he find his swing, or is he just going to have a throwaway 2022 season?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people compare. They've started to bring up some of the bad contracts of Red Sox past in the last 10, 15 years. We all know the names. Carl Crawford, John Lackey was on that list for a while before he kind of turned it around. there's a lot of names that go on that
Pablo
list.
Sandoval.
Pablo Sandoval, Hanley Ramirez. We all know the names. I'm not quite ready to put them there yet. Let's get a whole season out of them before we go there. But I'm one of the ones looking at those stats away from Coors Field, and they're not pretty. They are not very good. So I think he's better than this, but I don't know that you're going to get a guy that hits 300. I think be lucky if he hits 240. I think that's just kind of who he is. You should get good defense out of him, so that's always a plus. But I don't think this guy's going to be that stud in the offense that you're hoping for. He just might be a piece. That's worked at times in the past. I mean, we won a World Series with Stephen Drew as the shortstop, so stranger things have happened. We just didn't pay Stephen Drew while we're paying Trevor Story.
No, and I think Boston probably would have burned down if the ownership at the time did such things. So Trevor Story, as much as he struggled, has continued to stay at the top of the lineup. And I feel like we kind of saw this last year with Jarren Duran. They just would keep him at the top of the lineup. Do you see the Red Sox moving him down, Trevor Story moving him down for somebody like there's not really somebody you can move up in the bottom three there?
Right now, the only three guys that are hitting worth their salt are JD, Devers, and Bogaerts. And Bogaerts is doing more than his fair share. I was looking it up today. The league average is 233. Those are the only three guys on the team over that league average. And they're way above. Everybody else is well below. So it's a bit of an anomaly right now. Again, it kind of goes back to Cora. He's going to do whatever it takes. Right now, Alex Cora was on that team when Dustin Pedroia was a rookie, and they stuck with him until it got going. So I think that's what he's trying to do. Like you said, there's no other real good option. I think if there was other options, he would do it. There's no other option right now, so he's just trying to stick with it and hope that something happens. But at some point, he's going to have to move some guys around. They brought up Jarren Duran for one game. I was surprised that it was only one game. We saw what he could do last year. He's still a young guy. He still has some holes in his game he needs to refine. He's going to be a good player. I am surprised they didn't keep him around for a week or two just to see if he could kind of provide a spark. He's got a lot of tools in his chest, and maybe he's the kind of guy, I mean, he can hit for power a little bit, but more, this is the time where maybe you need to play a little small ball and just manufacture runs and just get the offense going, even if it's using your speed, just getting guys over, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and Jarren Duran's got plenty of speed, and we're going to continue talking about Jarren Duran, Triston Casas, and everyone else in between in Worcester when we come back to the second segment of the Locked On Red Sox podcast. Again, we're here with game day producer Derrick Willand. But first, I want to tell you about BetOnline because our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all of your betting needs. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, which if you're a Red Sox fan or a Reds fan, you probably want to stay away from, fights, and even the next season of the NLF futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Recaps of MLB games with analysis from our local experts, taking fans through the season like no other network. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. All right, let's talk some prospects here on Locked On Red Sox. Obviously, the big names here, Triston Casas, Jarren Duran. Red Sox fans are beginning to grow incredibly impatient for the recall of Triston Casas, and I completely understand why. He did hit a bit of a slump about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think it was an 0-for-13 stretch there, and Bloom said that they're being very careful with him because his development last year, while very good, he was all over the place. He changed levels there in the MILB, and you also had him going to the Olympics. So there was a lot there where he didn't really have a steady home, we'll call it. But Triston Casas is going to be a superstar in MLB. I mean, he's an incredible athlete. You've been seeing him a lot this season. What can you just kind of tell fans about him? And will he be worth just staying a little bit more patient for him?
He's a big boy.
Yeah,
That's
he's
one of my
big.
biggest takeaways. He's a big boy. He can hit the ball far. He's got a lot of power. A solid fielder. He can hit well. He's a good approach. Um, one of the biggest things for him right now, and Chaim Bloom talked about it recently. They want to, both he and Duran, they have things they want them to work on in their development. Right now, Casas struggles hitting lefties. His splits, righties versus lefties, are night and day. He's hitting below 200 against lefties. Let's just say that. So I think that's part of the issue. He's a solid first baseman. He's a good first baseman. I think there's still some work to be done there just to make sure, you're bringing someone up the right way. I think, especially the position the Red Sox are in, it's not like they're kind of middling in the race and can have a chance. They're in last place right now. I think the Red Sox brass has to look at this as, what's the biggest positive long term for the franchise? Is it worth bringing these guys up and maybe shattering their confidence or stunting their growth just to get the team from 5th place to 4th place? Are they going to make the playoffs this year? Are they going to do any damage in the postseason? It's a little early to really weigh that out, but it's got to be on their minds. I've been saying for a while, based on this prospect group, I think 2023 is the target year. I think 2023 is the year they want to make a run at the World Series. I think they arrived a little early last year. I'll get back to the prospect end in a sec, but I think they arrived a little early last year, and this is a little bit more of what we were supposed to get last year. So I think next year they're going to have a good group of vets and young guys. So to answer your question, I think that the fans are just going to have to be patient with Casas and Duran. I think Chaim Bloom's got a plan. He's going to stick to the plan. I think ownership's going to give him, enough time to try to see this plan through. They're not ones to really pull the plug on something that abruptly, unless it's really going poorly, like Bobby Valentine. And I don't think we're quite, there's not a players mutiny going on. The team's just playing bad. So I think it's going to be a while. If you want to see these guys, you can check them out on NESN Plus. You can head down to the ballpark in Worcester. It's a great little ballpark, great experience. They're playing really well. And they're both going to be in the majors sooner than later.
And they get to see you. Fans get to see you at the ballpark. Like that's just a trifecta right there. But
exactly.
You mentioned Casas' confidence here, and we've seen this in other sports. I mean, you look at the Flyers in the NHL, what they did with Carter Hart. You could even point to Jordan Binnington with the Blues, which Bruins fans don't like to talk about, but he was really awful after 2019. So you think of something like that. In baseball, it can be very, very different. But you look at Casas, where if you throw him into the offense right now, even though Cora and Bloom wouldn't be saying this, he probably would feel the pressure to be like, hey, kid, you're batting third today. Save our offense, save our defense, save first base. And first base it's a tough position to play. We've seen Hanley struggle with what foot to put on the bag when they moved him to first base. Bobby Dahlbeck has struggled a bit this season here and there, making routine plays. So you don't want to put that kind of pressure on him, because if Casas does get recalled, Red Sox fans are passionate. And if they're already booing Trevor Story. So you would hope that wouldn't happen with Casas. He comes up here, struggles a little bit, which he probably will at times when he first gets up here. But you don't want to put that kind of pressure on someone who's so young, who certainly has a bright future ahead of him.
That's right. And the Boo Birds, they were out in full force the other day for Trevor Story. It was the 4th time around, was not pretty for him.
They were done.
But yeah, I agree. There's a lot of season left. So if he or even Duran come up, that's a long time. They're going to hit a slump. There's going to be, it's baseball. Guys hit slumps. It is what it is. I think they'd rather he hit those slumps down in AAA and feel more comfortable trying to work them out. If you go over in AAA, it's not a big deal. As long as your approach is good, there's not that much on the line. I think a good example you were saying about calling prospects up and, back to what I was saying about what place the team is in. You go back to some examples in years past, bringing up Bogarts in 2013. There was a veteran team on a title run. They said, okay, it's worth it. Like this kid can help us win the title. And they did. Right. Same in 2007. They brought up Jacoby Ellsbury, even though they had Coco Crisp. And it was worth it. They were in a spot where they said, we can win this whole thing. This kid can help us. And they went for it. And it worked out for both those guys. Actually, if you remember in 2014, I think it was, Bogarts kind of regressed. He took a step back. And part of that was he got moved to third base. But people were worried that they'd stunted his whole career. And it turned around and worked out. But, it can happen. So I think it's all part of the bigger picture that they're looking at there.
Besides Casas and Duran, you talked a lot about Duran, and he's also going to be a superstar. He will help this Red Sox team, but is there somebody Red Sox fans should be kind of keeping their eye on or looking toward to maybe will get the call up?
Yeah, there's a few different interesting names there. On the hitting side, I got to go with Jeter Downs. I was looking through his stats today, and he's played in 26 games. He's reached base in 24 of them.
All right. Plate patience.
The guy's an on-base machine. He's basically every game he's either getting a hit, a walk, or both. And I think some of that's got to translate to a major league level. He's obviously got a very good eye. And that's something the Red Sox could potentially need coming up. And that's kind of more of the thing that maybe isn't so confidence-based. If you got a good eye like that, you must be confident in your approach anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's somebody that maybe leapfrogged guys. But again, just for a short trip up, I don't think he would stick for a while. On the pitching side, which is really something the Red Sox could use some help with, Connor Seabold, who came over along with Nick Pivetta and traded the Phillies a couple years back, he's been really good. He's got, I think, the third best ERA in the International League this year. He's won most of his starts. I don't have his stats right in front of me, but he's been really good for the team this year. Strikeouts are there. He's pitching well. He's in control. So those are a couple guys to watch for. And then on the other end, there's some other names. A guy you've seen before, Darwin Hernandez. They're trying to stretch him out. He's been starting. But I wonder if the Red Sox might get frustrated enough that they just bring him up to pitch out of the pen. He can strike guys out. He's got the stuff. His command is a little bit of the issue. He walks. He could easily walk two guys. He could walk two guys and then strike out the side. So that's kind of where he's at. He's working on that. I don't know if they want to rush that. But he's obviously been there at the major league level before. So he is an option that they might go to. They have another guy, Silvino Bracho, which is a fun name to say. Kind of him and Edward Bizardo, another guy you've seen before, all kind of similar thing. They can K guys, but they also have a little trouble with walks. And then Caleb Ort, he's the closer. He's a guy who maybe could get brought up there. So there are some arms down there. They're doing some things, but they're not complete. So again, it might be a thing where maybe they just come up and kind of plug a hole for a week or two until the veteran guys can kind of get their stuff together.
Yeah, and it's funny. The Red Sox need a lot of help out of the bullpen, and there was a lot of questions surrounding pitching as a whole in the starters too after Chris Sale went down with the stress fracture in his rib. But you mentioned Darwinzon Hernandez, who has a lot of familiarity with Boston, and even though they're trying to stretch him out, they don't really need starter help. Rich Hill does have COVID at the moment, and he'll come back. Tanner Houck will go back into the bullpen, but the Red Sox a few days ago signed Carlos Martinez to a minor league deal. And he definitely could provide some help if he can return to 2018, 2019 form. I mean, that's 3-4 years ago. That's a lot to ask of somebody who's been not been playing in the major leagues. So he'll be definitely someone to keep an eye on for me anyway. I think we've said this a few times. The Red Sox fans are impatient, and right now, rightfully so. This team is much better than what it's shown. And it's a mix. It's the offense, it's the pitching. But is there one in particular pitcher that could help this bullpen right now? Because that's where a big glaring, aside from the offense, the pitching is a big glaring issue, not being able to hold the 1-2 run lead.
If I had to pull one guy up, I would bring up Connor Seabold. And I might just put him in, I might try him out in the Garrett Whitlock role from last year. Come in and give you 2 strong innings of relief. He's pitching really well in the minors. Like you said, there's not really a spot for him in the rotation right now. The rotation's been good enough to good. You're right. It's the bullpen that's given the Red Sox fits this year. So maybe he's the guy. They've moved Whitlock to the rotation. We'll see how that goes. I'm a fan of it. I know you have other opinions, but
Yep.
I wonder if Connor Siebold could be that guy this year, or at least for a little while. If they could bring him up and he could get you 2 innings at a time and get you to the end of the game.
And that's what they need right now. It's desperate baseball, and desperate times call for desperate measures. We do have one more segment to get to here on Locked On Red Sox. I'm going to be putting Derrick on the spot here. I just thought of something that I need to be able to put him on the spot for into the third segment of Locked On Red Sox. But first, I want to tell you about Rock Auto, because with the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now nearly impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse just so happens to carry? You have computers, you have cell phones, and they have access to rockauto.com right at home and right in your pocket. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto's prices are reliably low for every single customer. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So we are here with the Woo Sox game day producer, Derrick Willand. Just so happens to be my fiance. And we've disagreed on quite a few things when it comes to the Red Sox this season. And one of them is Garrett Whitlock and his role with this Red Sox team. And Alex Cora officially moved him as a starter in the rotation. So Tanner Houck will go to the bullpen. He'll make spot starts, sounds like, in Rich Hill's absence. But is this the right move? And there's only one right answer, by the way.
Yes, definitively yes.
Wrong.
It is the right move. You get more innings out of him. He originally came up as a starter. I knew this was going to come up, so I looked up his numbers real quick before he came on. He had good numbers in the minor leagues as a Yankees farmhand. He's been good in his starts this year. They got to stretch him out a little bit, so there's going to be a few bumps right away. He should have been a starter last year, but they just didn't have him stretched out. When you get a guy that can pitch like this, if he's not going to be the closer, he's got to be starting, and he's got the arm to do the starts. It's not like, one of these guys who pitches well and can give you 2 or 3 innings, but can't get through the lineup a second or third time. I think he can get through the lineup a third time.
But the Red Sox desperately need a closer. This closer by committee thing is just foolish. And Garrett Whitlock has that stuff, and he's the only person you can trust when he's in the bullpen.
He is the only guy in the bullpen you can trust. It's a conundrum, but I'd still rather see him pitching 6 or 7 innings every 5th day and kind of be, potentially that ace. The Red Sox are going to have some weird questions to answer later in the season, and it may not matter by then. They may be so far out that it doesn't matter. But at some point, Chris Sale's going to come back. At some point, James Paxton could be an option. Are these guys going to go into the rotation? Is it going to be so late in the season they have to do something weird, a la, I think it was 2006, Curt Schilling was closing games because he didn't, I can't remember if he didn't have enough innings or if they had too many guys in the rotation. They didn't have a closer. I remember that. So are we going to see something weird like that? I don't know. Can Tanner Houck, he didn't look good in relief the other day against the Angels when he came on for Hill. But if he gets into a groove with it, is it something he can handle? He's got great stuff. It's just a matter of, is that his role or not? I don't know. Like I said, I wouldn't mind calling up Connor Siebold and seeing if he can fill that role. I know you have talked before a little bit about maybe Nick Pivetta can be that guy.
Yeah, I take that back. He's not looking good this year. He did look really good in his last start, but if he can continue that, then maybe. But right now, that's off the table. I take that completely back. That was silly.
But if he goes to the pen, he doesn't have to worry about getting through 5, 6, 7 innings. He can kind of ratchet it up and air it all out for 1 or 2 innings at a time.
Well, when you can't get through the first and second, it's an issue.
3rd inning in relief, he's great. It's fine.
He was good last year out of the pen. He was great. And so was Garrett Richards. And people were thinking like, oh, maybe the Red Sox should re-sign Garrett Richards because he was better in the bullpen than as a starter.
Hall of Fame.
And no jacket, no in the Hall of Fame.
It's interesting. I don't think one move is going to fix this whole team.
Right.
But sometimes if you can get a guy that can slide in and be that closer, or he's going to be the setup guy or whatever it is, other guys start finding roles and everybody kind of settles down. I think the Red Sox need to find that first domino, whatever it may be, and hopefully some of the other ones slide in place. I don't know if this is a playoff team based on how they are. We're getting close to Memorial Day, and that's kind of the cutoff. But at the same time, I don't want to suffer through 300-400 baseball for the rest of the year. If they can at least play 500 or above, let's try to do that. And if you're going to be below 300, let's really tank it and get a good draft pick, because the farm system's looking great. Wouldn't mind adding another top pick to that.
So what you're saying is people should head to Polar Park and watch the Blue Sox, because it will be better when they win instead of watching the Red Sox lose another 3-2 or 10-1 game.
Exactly.
So my goal now is by our wedding date, August 6th, to have you completely converted to Garrett Whitlock being the closer. I'm going to put it in my vows. It's going to happen. It has to happen, because Garrett Whitlock should be the closer.
He'll be well on his way to a Cy Young by then, and you'll have to eat your words.
He'll be the 2-13 with a 1.35 ERA. He'll be the
Exactly.
Red Sox Jacob deGrom, because he never gets run support. Derrick, thank you for taking time out of your busy day, out of your busy life, to join me on Locked On Red Sox today. Where can people find you to support you and the Woo Sox?
It's pretty easy. You can find me at Derrick Willand on Twitter. And it's spelled the right way, DERRICK.
It is, yes. So you can find him on Twitter. You can find him at Polar Park during the homestands. And you can find the Locked On Red Sox podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at LO_Red Sox, Jake at Jake Iggy, me, Lauren, 3 Laws, Lauren with 4 R's. And be sure to check out the other Locked On shows across the network: Locked On Prospects with Lindsey Crosby, Locked On Yankees, Locked On A's, Locked On Dodgers. Everyone does an incredible job here over at Locked On. And now that you've made Locked On Red Sox your first listen today, head on over to Locked On MLB to make it your second listen. Friend of the pod, friend of mine, Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully, takes you through his unique perspective of major leaguers, both past and present. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. We will see you later this week. Please, Red Sox win. Let's go, Red Sox.